Officially begin with
We'll canvass tomorrow. And we'll swear
Okay.
the next Tuesday.
All right, are we ready?
next Tuesday, 24th, okay.
I gotta get mine pulled.
All right, everyone, it is 6 p.m. and it is the May 16th meeting of the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation. I'd like to call this meeting to order and note that we do have a quorum. We are missing Mr. Oh, no, we aren't. Mr. Lundin is walking in, but we are missing Wade Nelson, who will not be here today. So, Richard, do you have any public comments?
I show nobody signed up and I received none by email.
All right then, if we could go on to item number 1, minutes of the MEDC regular meeting of April 18th, 2022. Has everyone had a chance to read them?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I don't have mine pulled up. I'm so sorry. I was talking too much. I think I needed to find out who made a second on, I think maybe the minutes. Somebody, you've got it on, maybe I misread.
It was seconded by Dan, I believe.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's in there.
It's a financial report, you're right. The financial
financial
report
report.
is
Yeah.
One of them.
motion to approve.
Oh, you're saying one of them, Carol?
Yes, sir. Number 2,
Yeah, number 2 did not have
it said it was made by Byron, but it doesn't have a second. And then it says all in favor, which is great, but we need to put who made the second.
Okay, I can make that change.
That's a
We
good
could
catch.
correct that
Okay, so is your motion tonight is then to approve it, correcting that item?
unless anybody else had anything else. That's all I saw. So I can make the motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of April the 18th with the correction of the second by Dan.
Yeah,
Is that what we decided?
right.
Okay.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the meeting minutes of April 18th, 2022, pending the correction of the second for item number 2. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? I actually have one that's semi-related to minutes generally. So, Ryan, you weren't here for our special meeting. Are you okay with doing the minutes for that based on the recording?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. I can do
Okay,
that.
so we'll just get that next time and put it in the next meeting minutes? Okay. Any other comments? Motion to approve the minutes and seconded. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the MEDC regular meeting of April 18th, 2022, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries and we unanimously, and we will approve the minutes of the MEDC regular meeting of April 18th, 2022, pending the change to item number 2 to include Dan's second.
Who seconded the,
This one? You did.
oh, I did? Okay. Just want to make sure we didn't miss a second.
That's what I wrote down.
And we'll make sure to get that one in the minutes.
Just-
Okay,
Okay.
definitely no confusion now.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
With y'all's
Calls all
permission, we'll move on to item number 2, MEDC financial report for April 2022. Carol?
Yes, ma'am. I wasn't able to look up, well, yes, I did. The tax pool interest rate last month was 0.28, and now it's showing 0.33.
Tied to LIBOR or something.
That's it. That's something to notify. The sales tax transfer of $121,219.23 was transferred for the month of May. And of course, it was a quarterly amount, so it was larger than we've seen the last 3 months. And then down at the bottom of that page, Anthony did not get these into the report, but they'll be on the next report. But they were checks that were wrote this month. And the second to the bottom one, Applied Production Services Incorporated, was for the tents at the Antique Festival. He asked me to be sure because I had never heard that company before, but it was for the tents at the Antique Festival. And
And I
then,
think that's quite a bit less than what the Antiques Festival usually pays, so well
Probably
done to
so.
our event coordinator for shopping it around.
yes, that was good. And then Kevin Smith, the bottom one, was the DJ for the whole weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, okay. And other than that, the only other thing, Rebecca, was the event revenue on page 13 at the top. Anthony said it doesn't have a current total budget because we didn't budget it, but we're using it to put the revenue in, so it will have it has that balance of 10,000. And he just wanted to let everybody know that he will start. And most of this money was from Charlie Diggs and Antique Festival, the rent on the booths. Any other questions or comments?
No, it's
No.
all very clear. Actually, I do have one comment. So the swank check that cleared for $1,950, that's all the movies that will be showing in 2022 for that series of movies. They make us put out they make us decide what movies are going to be showing, and we pay for them all at one time. So if we get rained out, we have a year to re-show the movie in it. So we're semi-protected on that. But they do packages. You aren't allowed to just pick one and show one movie at a time.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the financial report for, that's not,
I'll second.
It has been moved by Jeff and seconded by Ryan that we approve the MEDC financial report for April 2022. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of approving the MEDC financial report as presented say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will approve the MEDC financial report for April 2022. Item number 3, discussion and consideration of expenditure for postcards and packaging.
Okay. You may remember back in February, the MEDC board voted with the hiring of Sterling Regard to take a series of photographs of historic buildings and scenic sites in Montgomery. Those photos have been taken, and postcard mock-ups are included with this packet item. Not every building that was included in the proposal has been included for postcards. Only about half were. And we estimate that some sites will be more interesting than others for postcards. Some just obviously tend to look better in that medium. But overall, we're hoping to produce a fair amount of postcards. Starting by tailoring this first run to some of the better sites that I think are probably needed, and especially if you've had the chance to look through them. The backup material also shows that the requested amount for this item is just under $900, which will cover the cost of approximately 4,000 postcards and having them wrapped. The smallest quantity of postcards purchased is 100 per building. Anything smaller than that, you start to get higher unit prices that are significant. And so this way, we think we have a pretty good sized run as well as a pretty fair price per unit on those cards. The largest volume being 1,000 postcards for the Montgomery sign and the First State Bank, which are two of the most recognizable buildings in this series of postcards. We would anticipate that we divide these postcards into 6 categories to distribute to merchants, which would be distributed in town businesses at no charge, so that each one would have some unique postcards, and that they're, if we're able to get more than, we're hoping to get more than 6 interested sellers here, and we can apportion these around. The wrapping would be used to make, so that these are bundled ahead of time, and we won't have additional staff time who are sitting here trying to count out postcards and put them in corporate or company hands here in town. Ideally, these will create a demand sell out, businesses that want to put more. This gives a reason, ideally, for some of the people to go to these businesses just for these postcards at a desirable item, at a desirable price, and while they're in those businesses, gives them an opportunity to also spend money on other items. So the wrapping would be taken care of. We would be seeking through our front desk to be able to provide these sets to the local businesses. And the goal would be giving these postcards to merchants for them to be able to sell at a low price. These postcards themselves being advertising for the city of our historic sites, and something that ideally residents would send those postcards out, be doing some of our advertising for us. Also, for people coming into town, seeing these sites, be able to buy these postcards at local businesses, and take those sites back with them in this medium. Whether they choose to keep the postcard or send it away, it's accomplished the goal of being there for the people visiting the town. We would expect that they would be sold at 25 cents each, being a very low price, but since we're covering the cost, providing those to the businesses, that's, they don't have any cost in it, so that's a chance for them to make money. Ideally, people will buy these, one per, or even more than one of each image, but multiple there, so they can ultimately, seek to create a set of them. Yeah. And we have the ability to come back to the EDC board if we find there's just a big run on these and maybe even more popular as we would hope they would be.
Okay.
And if you flip through, there's a summary, a breakdown of cards and cost, as well as the mock-up of the postcard to include a number of those scenic images for you.
Now, are these mock-ups, or there's just a few of the different, couldn't put them all on there, but are we?
So if you look at the Excel file, it has all of the ones that we intend on selling. So no, the mock-ups don't have all of the photos that we, of the postcards that we intend on
The
selling.
photos are beautiful.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I like those.
So the business would ask for packet one, and packet one is going to have those pictures, postcards in it,
Yes, so that number of postcards in packet one.
right? And then open the packet and sell them.
Yeah, so
as
they can
is.
display them, sell them however works for them.
I think it's a great idea.
If we're giving them away, then, they're not taking any risk.
Right.
So you're needing an emotion to approve $900 to,
I'll second.
Yes, sir.
So it has been moved and seconded that we approve up to $900 expenditure for postcards and packaging. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? Is everyone comfortable taking it out of the brochure's printed literature line item?
And that item has $4,000, so that was budgeted, all that is still remaining, and so this is 900 of the 4,000.
That's fine.
that's good.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving up to $900 expenditure for postcards and packaging, postcards and packaging, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will approve up to $900 expenditures for postcards and packaging to be paid out of brochure's printed literature line item. Item number 4, consideration of possible action for the EDC to participate with the city and TxDOT in the cost of certain TxDOT highway median construction work located in the city of Montgomery.
Okay, last meeting, it was discussed whether or not the EDC could participate with the TxDOT median work that is ongoing. We learned from TxDOT at a staff level that essentially it was too late for the work that's ongoing on the eastern side of the city. Subsequent to those conversations that staff had with TxDOT, conversation was had with Kyle Bertrand of Gunda Corporation, who is going to reach out to his deputy district engineer's office to see if there's a possibility to at least get an upgrade on pavers to go in to upgrade that look on the eastern side. Any upgrade would then be the responsibility of the city. If the EDC would like to see that we use these upgraded pavers, and have them put into place, then we would need to be responsible for covering that cost difference, because TxDOT, can be convinced to do things, but they want us to then be able to pay for that. At the moment we went to print on this, the cost was unknown. I still did not have any information to that.
So
We've been reaching out to TxDOT. We have not heard back from them yet. I don't have the cost because I don't have.
are they open to that concept though?
Potentially they are.
Okay, so how about stamped concrete? Would that be cheaper? I can see the cost of it for damage. It'd be easier to pull pavers and fix it if you did, instead of just pouring stamped concrete stained, which gives you the same look.
Cost-wise, pavers and stamped concrete can be the same depending on what additives or mixtures you put in.
Okay.
For the coloring and then the patterns that have to be purchased, and that can take some lead time. But we can ask that when we get.
Yeah, some pavers would be easier to work on if you had to go back in there and pull something out. I mean, obviously stamped concrete's a big
Although
chunk.
Lori and I were talking with the dog tooth thing they've got going, I'm not sure what their plans are at all.
Right.
Pouring concrete in with the
Yeah.
dog tooth to let it leak out, I don't know.
Well, it's drainage is what that is. I mean,
Pavers.
Right, but then how do you pour concrete in on top of that, and then why worry about drainage when you're pouring concrete?
well, not
So,
in they've already done the molds, and of course they've cut a slot between every one of them for drainage, so.
but then with the pouring it in internally, I just don't know what it's gonna look like. But I guess for me, the big question is, like, how quickly do we need to move? Do we want to approve something now with an unknown cost? But if TxDOT says you have until noon tomorrow
Oh,
to make
yeah.
this decision, are we willing to go forward on something that we just don't have? an
Well,
idea
yeah,
of
if they're
what it
gonna
costs?
pave them, they're gonna need to hold 1.5 inches down from the top lip so we can have room to put pavers in there. You can't just stack them on top of what they do, finished product.
Hey, quick question. Is it possible for us to go ahead with, since we're doing a redevelopment of downtown, and maybe go with some of that design, those design concepts, put a Texas Star in the middle, or just to create a little bit more of a, hey, you're entering Montgomery? I can't imagine it'd be too big of a challenge, would it, Richard?
You're talking about for on the eastern side of the city with
Yes.
regards to
Yeah,
the
not in every pod, but I mean, maybe
Yeah, just maybe every other pod or whatever, just to start to get that flavor.
I mean, I'd love to, but I feel like we're at the very end. We've already got plans that were approved. They're
yeah, we
looking at
should have been in
pouring
the
it,
back room a
finishing
long
it.
time ago with it.
I think we'd be lucky to get to do this, honestly.
Okay.
The only thing that I think we're ever going to convince them to do is something that's super easy that they're indifferent to, or it won't do anything to hold up their completion date.
Well, we definitely should make it stand out.
Yeah, definitely.
You're coming into Montgomery, yeah.
In the event that they don't want us to do anything, we can always go back through there and stain it. I mean, that's easy.
What?
We
Yeah,
don't
pump
own
up
the road,
sprayer,
that's
I mean, we do it all, I do it on everything, we do stain
Right, but we
it.
don't own the road, so we're not allowed to do anything.
Somebody showed up at night.
Those conversations had taken place before.
No. So what's the plan right now? Is it just concrete
Yes.
in the median? What are those vertical? I've never seen that before.
I honestly don't know.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're at the crown, so we're not sure
Yeah.
when we're allowing drainage to go through it when it's already at the crown of the road.
Yeah.
We're unsure. We're trying to get an answer on that so we can figure out how we can get these pavers integrated.
And it's really not a whole lot of median space because like the turn lanes are conflicting, and so it's not even. Is it even really worth it? I don't know. I can't see top down what the extents are, but there's a plan online, I think, though. I might go look at that. But
I mean, if we would be successful and get pavers there, it will change the look of people who are coming from the Conroe side into
Yes.
Montgomery.
Yes.
Even if it's not as distinctive as you
It
might
can't be
like.
that much, I mean, there's not hardly any space in those things, right?
Well, it's labor intensive, you got a lot of cutting.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, versus just pouring the concrete in.
I mean, it's gonna look a lot better in concrete, so I'm for doing pavers. But we're at their mercy, so it's whatever they let us do. And
Right.
Right, I was gonna say, so there's, what we should ask for, it should be, again, the easiest thing for them to do that they're willing to do, which, I've seen a lot of pavers and, they're probably willing to do, that's like a standard upgrade for them, so they're familiar with it. They probably have somebody else doing pavers that they can just say, go up to Montgomery next and keep doing what you're doing, but up there.
We believe on the Conroe side, there is a section where they're doing pavers, so it's already integrated.
It's already in their contract.
Possible
Just-
to
Yeah, they did them down there at 45, right by Home Depot. They did pavers and did a landscape median down, looks really nice.
Oh, that's good. So he maintains that as TxDOT still, since it's a standard item for them, are they gonna maintain it?
No, the city of Conroe.
With the bricks, if there's issues, it depends on how they want to address it. Sometimes they put it back on 2K for the improvements. But luckily, you
Like-
should have, like in Tomball, there's that shifting from those joints so that they all buckle and they're just been left. You shouldn't have a lot of that shifting because there's not a lot of pavement transition.
I'm just thinking about like weeds and stuff growing in
They usually
between.
don't grow that much.
Because on 2054, they poured all those sidewalks and it's just terrible
I
looking.
saw that.
Yeah.
And so,
We shouldn't get weeds because they didn't tear up the pavement.
that's true. Well, sometimes, you know,
It's just the dirt.
the dirt gets in between the cracks and it grows. Yeah. So anyway, that's just he's responsible for the maintenance, but I wouldn't even mind, you know, maintaining if we had to, but it's
One
a
of the
different
most-
conversation, I guess.
One of the most attractive things about the revitalization overall is that intersection. Upgrade at 149, the same type of look when you go down to Klepper. You know, the transition coming southbound, the whole, and, you know, so all that, it would be disappointing, I would think, to not be able to do something that would transition to that.
Right.
Now, with that said, I hope we're able to talk them into, you know, TxDOT helping us out of those intersections, because to me, that's a big draw for me. It just is. It's something special.
corner, yeah.
And again, I've got firsthand testimony. My wife and I through here all the time, and we looked at the architecture. We looked at stuff, at landscaping. All that stuff meant something to me.
Right.
And so we all say that. We go into town, oh, that's nice. So I would encourage us to do that and do something to transition to that point, and then be assertive, and let's go to meetings or whatever we have to do to make sure that TxDOT is going to help us somehow. I mean, I don't know how that works exactly.
I think if we can, you know, have it better than desolate concrete at that point, because we're only talking about 22854, and then take this as an absolute wake-up call that the distance between 2854 and 149 cannot be left up to chance. So when they get ready to move to that point, you know, we've got kind of in our downtown plan, maybe the fire station to 149 is in our plan, but absolutely our plan does not include enough. We have to engage with TxDOT the second that they come out with something from 2854 all the rest of the way to town.
Well, if they see we're already willing to participate, it's going to foam the runway a bit and let us get started
Right,
with that.
but I think we need to engage much more, or this is like a fire drill after 3/4 of your house is burned down.
Right.
You know, hopefully you can save the rest, but you know, you really should.
Who does that? Who interacts with them, starting?
Would it be McCorking now?
That'd be city staff and city engineers.
I mean, you know, it's also worth asking, you know, if you look at how many things we have on our list for consideration and possible action, do we need to engage with additional consultants to do more for us? Because we're more of an activist board than I think that MEDC has had before. So if we're asking for more professional services, do we need to hire people to do that, then rely on staff who, you know, we're using up more time than what we're paying for?
Well, what about WGA? Like, can we just help them be that facilitator between us and, I don't
We
know.
could, although their contacts are with the local office who says no for TxDOT.
At the Conroe office?
Generally. So that's something else to think about.
Yeah, because I mean, before they get down here, we're going to need to at least run some conduit, you know, in the middle for electrical sleeves, water,
Yeah.
stuff like that, to be able to put vegetation in your power poles or your flags or whatever, so.
Irrigation.
Yeah, exactly. For future construction, definitely want to get ahead of it to that degree. I mean, ultimately, TxDOT will run all the way through the city, all the way to the west. It's just a matter of time.
Right.
But we're at least now ready to be engaged for this median type work for everything from here forward. Right now, we're talking about, obviously just what's going on now, so we can get some recovery in here.
When will we find out what it cost? When?
The day before they ask.
It might be the day they say, yeah, the day they say, oh.
But we got a budget for it, or can allocate budget for it? Okay. That was very
We have
convincing.
no idea.
Yeah, right.
We work the same way that city council does, where basically we go over budget and then at the end of the year, we do a,
Amended budget to.
Some puts and takes, okay.
Yes.
Well, at the end of the year, they're gonna be halfway to Conroe.
Yes.
So, I mean, if we have money in our downtown design plan, that to me is basically the same thing. So do we need to amend our budget to basically say downtown is to include the corridors as well? Because downtown has always just meant downtown. But to me, the economic drivers of the city should be included in our development of what drives Montgomery.
Well, that's what's seen first.
Yeah, actually, you could do that either by an amendment that redefines category, or just move money into a separate new category.
Okay.
Either one of those would be financially correct.
Okay.
You know, that would, you know, it's not an agenda item tonight, that would be an agenda item for an upcoming meeting, but if that's the direction that y'all want to go,
Well, this says consideration of possible action to participate with the city and TechStot, so I think we could potentially,
you can identify those costs to cover it.
and then
Tonight.
also put that on the city council's agenda for approval, because we would need their approval if we were to do something that A, was over a certain amount, and B, required a budget amendment for us to do it, even if we did the budget, if we got their approval before we did our own budget amendment.
Yes. Lori, do you happen to know what kind of timeline it might be that we find it out from TechStot?
TechStot, we're calling our hope of last resort tomorrow.
Okay.
So we should hopefully have an answer this week.
Because that would give me definitive information to put on the next city council agenda.
Because basically TechStot's prices are fairly set, is that, would you say that's correct?
For this contract, if your unit prices are already set, if they don't have pavers anywhere, that's something they have to do.
Right.
And then,
But they won't watch this recording and say, my God, they're desperate, we'll charge them 7 times the going rate.
no, it'll be the unit cost.
So we don't have any problem saying we will pay for the upgraded amount from 2854 to the city limits, whatever that is. Do we?
And,
Or,
I mean, it kind of is what
That'd
it
be
is.
open and check right there.
and
I think we
And,
at least know what the price is.
they would generally know how much space it is, therefore they would know what the price is.
Yeah, they already have their unit quantities, and so they can always get that amount and tell us what they were gonna pay for it, and then what the improvements are, and what we'd be responsible
So
for.
you should know, assuming they would do it, you should know fairly quickly, is it $10,000 or is it $40,000?
We should get that fairly quickly, as they say.
we would have to sign something before we would go through with TechStot on that change.
I
Thing?
believe an AFA will have to be signed between the city
Yeah.
and TechStot in order
Yeah.
to approve it and get it done, and they
So-
probably have to be very.
But that wouldn't be us,
There would
that
have
would be the
to be a
city, so we would
meeting.
have to agree to this, just pay the city back for it.
Should we put a limit on it, Carol? Just, I mean, it seems like it's pretty open.
I don't like it being open,
Me neither.
I don't either.
not at all with TechStot.
I'd like to see it
But-
happen if it's doable.
I would like to see it happen too, but I don't think you can't just say a blank check here, do whatever you want.
We
Because
should
we
have
don't
an
even know
answer.
what, we don't even know what that is.
What I'm hearing is we may have an answer within a few days, either yes or no, and
Yeah.
this is how much.
Maybe we should just say pending, not more than X, whatever.
Okay, so what would your not more than number be?
Well, I don't know what we have, what we could allocate in terms of a budget. And I don't know, I've never put pavers in a median before. I haven't got a clue.
Yeah,
Well, that's why I was asking her about the price, I mean, because it is what it is, that's the only problem. So if you want the pavers, you have to pay what they charge.
Yeah, I
And
understand.
they're not gonna be probably any higher than market, or if you get a landscaping crew in there, or anybody else, it's gonna be competitive.
The only time they go higher is when the unit quantity is smaller. If you ever look at
Right.
a TechStot contract, the smaller the quantity, the higher the unit price, because it's a little different labor. But usually it's pretty competitive when it comes.
I mean, can someone spitball this?
$10,000, $20,000?
Because I don't.
12?
Because because I don't
I
know the
mean-
area, I don't know the cost, I can't give you. a
Has
whole
anybody bought pavers lately, or?
I don't even know what the area is.
I don't recall, I think I probably spent, let's see here, probably in that small area, how many sections are we talking here? Do we know square footage?
$260 on a pallet, a whole pallet.
Yeah.
is what I
We're
just
talking
bought.
about Pizza Shack all the way to 2854.
Okay,
All that
all those little pockets that they kind of got opened up there? That's probably
not gonna take
10,
very many
maybe 10 to
pockets.
20 grand max.
Yeah, because each one of those pockets.
I would
is
say
probably
not to
more than
exceed
6
20,000 without
You can take
approval.
the material cost and double it for labor. And that would be it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So why don't we say 50 just to make it happen?
50?
Because there's inflation, and we've got $168,000 in our downtown development improvements budget.
You make
line item.
it. I ain't gonna- Let Ryan make it.
I don't like it open-ended. I don't know why. Can we just come to some type of agreement with them? Like, hey, the MDC is interested. I don't know. I don't like voting on something.
We can have another special meeting once we know.
The AFA will
We could
obviously
do
have
that.
to go to city council to be approved also.
Why don't we just have a special meeting?
2,000 has to go.
I mean, we can get a quorum in here real fast if we need to.
Ryan, are you comfortable with that? I know you have the schedule that is the least flexible.
Yeah, that's fine.
Doing what?
Does a
Having-
quorum have to be present, or can you get
No, you have to have
it's
a
not like
quorum
it,
present.
You have to have a quorum.
you can't get a written
Meet on an
proxy?
afternoon
No?
or something.
Okay.
No.
All right, well, I mean, we'll just do a quorum. Let's get a number. Nobody's comfortable with that.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. And it sounds like what the city has to do anyway will take a little bit of time, so we've got at least enough time to post a meeting and have.
I think everybody says we're willing, let's just get a number, that's all we're asking.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're
I'm okay.
very interested in doing this, everyone is, well, I'm willing to throw money like confetti to have bricks there, but everyone else is feeling a little bit more conservative, but it sounds like there's broad agreement that we need to upgrade that area,
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
as a next step, we need to be much more serious about 2854 to
Yeah.
when the downtown design
Agree.
starts.
Yeah, we all agree on that.
And Richard, also, would you all feel comfortable changing downtown development improvements to be a development improvements
Yeah.
category rather than specific downtown development improvements for
Because we weren't spending it this year anyway.
We could, but probably not all of it.
Just starting on McGowan, a couple of
I
those.
think we spent all of our streets and sidewalks. Oh, wait, no, we did, because that is our sidewalks, isn't it? That is our streets and sidewalks. Or no, that was our capital, transfer to capital projects, wasn't it?
160.
Yeah, that's right, that was that. So we still have all that money.
Yeah,
Because to me, that's as important as downtown.
agree.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the description.
Where everybody's coming, they're gonna come there first.
Just get any more information, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right, so then we'll put that on the agenda for NEDC for June to also put
Would
in
be.
an amended budget to
Yes.
our own change. for
Move that. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Me too.
Sounds good.
So what are we going to say for the agenda?
We
I mean,
are
the
just going to
motion-
move on because we don't have a motion
Okay.
to take action. These are things that we're going to take action in the future.
On number 4?
Four.
We're just going to
Number
move
4.
on.
Yes, we'll move on.
No table, no,
Would you like to table it?
I can table it.
Okay.
If we don't do anything, then it doesn't have to ever come back.
Okay.
You either have to table it or you have to move on it.
Well, it could never
So-
come back as well if they give us a stiff arm, so.
True. But I would rather it be, I will table item number 4.
Do we have a second on that?
I'll
item?
second it.
It's been moved and seconded by Byron that we table item number 4. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any other discussion? All those in favor of tabling item number 4 say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will table item number 4. Richard, are you ready to move on?
I'm ready.
Item number 5, consideration and possible action of recommendation to MEDC Board of Directors on RFQ 2022-1 engineering service for McCown Street improvements.
Okay, the RFQ was published on April 20th, 2022, due to be received here at City Hall May 4th, 2022. 3 firms properly and timely submitted their qualifications to the city for this item. Half Associates Incorporated, Gunda Corporation, Gradient Group LLC. The general summary of the work to be performed is to develop plans to reconstruct McCown Street to better facilitate vehicular and pedestrian use and provide sidewalks to complete pedestrian connectivity from Caroline Street to the City Community Center building site north of College Street, and develop plans for accompanying streetscape in line with the downtown master plan. The RFQs were evaluated by the City Administrator, Director of Planning and Development, and the Public Works Director on behalf of the MEDC for a recommendation tonight. The categories in which they were evaluated were familiarity with local municipal planning and infrastructure, experience in work performance, references, and project approach, planning, and the staffing for it. Out of those 4 categories, Gunda led 2 categories, half led 1. Gunda and half were tied in 1 category, and Gradient Group did not lead for any of the categories.
And just to be clear, is Gunda back to being Gunda, or are you somebody else?
We are still doing that.
Okay.
Until later this year, we'll be official director
Okay, got it. Can we still call you Gunda?
for now.
Okay.
So the unanimous recommendation of each of the 3 of us who evaluated is for Gunda Corporation. Or perhaps River may need to change it.
Were there any costs?
This is just for the sidewalks from Caroline Street. What?
No, it's for,
What is it saying?
It's for the
Caroline
engineering,
Street
right?
to the City Community Center building.
it's for
McCowan.
McCown from Caroline up to College where this community center is. We're trying to describe.
Oh, this has nothing to do with sidewalks, but it says.
Well, sidewalk is part of the reference in here, but it's to develop plans to reconstruct McCown Street to better suit both vehicle and pedestrian traffic.
Like our plan that we had,
So somewhat like,
right.
Like the picture
Because-
says.
this.
Yeah, it's,
Just FYI, this is the second meeting that I pulled this out.
But
so,
all this is to bring us
Anyone else?
plans. Oh, I'll pass it down.
These are ones from the
It's gonna make it more foot traffic to handle the cars. Yeah, she's talking.
yeah, where what you're looking at from the master
We're
plan.
dealing with the
That dealt,
property owners downtown when we're doing this plan with these engineers?
we will there will definitely have to be communication with all the property owners downtown. Obviously, because no matter how great a document we could develop, if it's not in conjunction with communicating with them, it's probably a non-starter when they start seeing, hey, the city wants to just run over and do this plan. It has to be done in conjunction with them.
You have to
And
create you're creating buy-in, and we're just trying to get going in that direction to get the buy-in as to what they're willing to do in conjunction with the city to try to get somewhat like that look, which
Right.
is awesome,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, we need to get buy-in.
Yeah, and it's like what you're looking there, with the master plan, that was the overall,
Right.
concept. This is the next
So-
step to start to develop into detail of what
Right.
that particular.
So it may not be that right there when they get through doing their
Well,
plans.
I think that's the starting goal, but you're right.
Right.
If for some reason, whether it be a community buy-in, whether it be, just for whatever engineering reason can't
Right,
be done,
right,
then
right.
something would have to
Okay.
be changed and
Okay.
redesigned, but we wouldn't know
But
that.
that's all we're getting is just a plan to see it more detailed.
Right. Are
From
you
these
asking,
people.
does this include actual construction? Because this does not include actual construction.
This is just
That's what I'm
planning.
asking.
This
This
takes
is
the planning
just-
to the next step.
A plan,
Yes, ma'am.
all right.
Yeah. This is
No,
not,
no work
This is not, all the work associated with this is planning work.
Right. Okay.
Not go out and do physical construction work.
So is that part of
Ultimately,
the-
that would have to come back to either this body or the city council,
Right.
well, really both.
So is that part of the allotted 50,000 that went into that, or is the 50,000 that we had approved before mainly underground work, and this is money that's part of something else, or is that the 50,000 that we said go into plans for McCowan? We already said that, right? So is this included as part of that?
This would come out of, I believe it was out of the development. I believe what you're talking about, as I recall, is for certain specific items. This does not display. This is in addition to those items.
Okay.
So this is the engineering report, basically to see what's under the ground over there, what type of drainage we're gonna have to do, what has to be replaced. Just to say, at the end of the report, it's gonna say, okay, it's gonna cost you this much. Is this what we're looking at?
No, you're getting another direction here because ultimately, all the underground work is gonna have to be coordinated with the city engineer as well, because there's water, wastewater, drainage. The city is currently doing work right now to start to establish what's needed in those areas. What we're talking about here, is the streetscape area. That, we need all of that to push together for a final plan.
This is just, we're just topping it off. This is icing, right?
Yeah, this is just to make,
Yeah.
This is correct.
And it's the planning for the icing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you have to remember conjunction, we're currently in the process of doing a wastewater line studies that will deal with replacing wastewater lines. In the downtown area, those you have to replace. City engineers also be doing work with water lines. There's survey work being done in the downtown area that will lead to plans for drainage. All of that, plus all of this, ultimately, all of it has to get pushed together. If Gunda gets this award from y'all and we negotiate that contract, they're also ultimately also going to be communication with the city engineer because all of this is going to have to come together in one plan. But there's various unique parts to that plan.
I think I
But I think
understand.
it's more than just icing, because it implies that it's just on the top. I mean, McCown Street has problems that aren't being addressed yet that I think the engineer, that this plan will have to deal with, like the fact that the street has, like if you've been there, there's like a bowl and there's like different grades for the, the street versus the shops, and like that's, if we're doing wedding cake analogies, I mean, that's the dowels inside the wedding cake and the pieces of plastic that hold up the different layers to keep them from collapsing on each other. I mean, that's stuff you don't see, but it's really important to the overall look of the finished product and hold up the icing and the beautiful flowers that people focus on. But that takes a lot of engineering and pre-planning before you start putting on.
And that's what this is for, to engineer and pre-plan for this
Surely it
streetscape.
would include those things as well, because we need a lot of it.
This, the only reason I keep questioning it is because I've seen money being spent on McGowan Street in the past, and I just want to make sure that this is plans we're going to see to fix McGowan Street better than it's been fixed in the past.
This is
And I know
definitely-
3 times McGowan Street has been worked on and plans have been done. So I don't,
Well, you know how many times I've canceled plans to just surface over, the ugliness that's McCown. This is like the next step in hopefully what's the final
okay.
march towards, because there's no easy solution to the problem that is McCown Street. I mean, it's,
No,
Especially to do it right.
that's been the problem all along. We're building
Right.
a Volvo, not, ready to wear fashion here. This is,
And this is not to put a Band-Aid on it that in 3 years you will need to continually re-put Band-Aids on. This is to get it done right. Well,
I've heard that before, so
I understand where you're
I
at.
just want to make sure.
It's good to be cognizant of the past when you're looking at something like this, but this is the deep structural and the subgrade stuff plus
And then coming up,
building it up.
Listen, it's good to have Carol, but she started in 1834 when the city was here. She knows more than anybody else. She's the Yoda of Montgomery. I thank God every day. You look great for the 18.
No, but I do understand where you're coming from because, you know, it's not unique to Montgomery that there's areas that never got the right attention.
True.
And it became repetitive problems. The intent here is to get this done right because whatever amount of money you put into this, if you don't do it right, you're going to be doing it again and again and again.
And it's a part of our master development plan. It falls in line with what we're trying to accomplish overall, right?
You're right. I mean, I think, you know, there's a number of central points. I don't want to say only one point is uniquely
Right.
important in that master plan. But McCown Street is one of those uniquely important points
Yeah.
that we're trying to make that be a showcase area.
We got to start someplace.
And that's one of the reasons to start there. You know, it's going to take some time, it's going to take some work.
Yeah.
And I also think that if you're looking at Montgomery's history, at least in the slightly more 1900-ish, you know, we've been a small town without the ability to do the capital funding that you need to spend on a road. You know, we've been focused on water, we've been focused on sewer. I mean, you know, the Stewart Creek wastewater treatment plant was really the first time that the city was able to generate the bond funding to really make a good investment in the city's future. And it's for, you know, fundamental, you know, needs. And since that time, I mean, the city's grown, you know, from $3.25 million of a budget to, you know, 5 times that amount. And so we're in a different position at this point, thanks to our sales tax dollars, to be able to invest in, you know, the undergirding of capital projects that I think in the past, we just didn't have the luxury of being able to spend that kind of money to be able to make something last in the future. And now we do, which we didn't before.
Well, given that we're about to look into signage for that parking lot, we know we've had some parking issues where people are parking in one spot and going to do business and use the bathroom and all this kind of stuff that we got going on. I do see that in the language of this study here, parking, pedestrian, vehicular facilitation and that sort of thing. So I would think and hope, Lori, maybe that this is, if we drew the line right there at Montgomery Steakhouse and didn't go ahead and address the ugliness of the parking lot, and we just stuck right there, I would think that somehow in this study we would imagine what are we going to do with that parking lot, Steakhouse, Urban, and so forth, because it's just immediately adjacent to the street itself. So would this study and this venture address any of that somehow?
I think that gets into where we're working with essentially the businesses and the owners who are our neighbors out there, and where the question starts to get to be, what's public property, what's private property? Even though it's private property, I think in terms of discussion, we may be able to work with them in terms of facilitating something that works for both sides. I don't necessarily know what that is at the moment because we haven't had the plans, haven't had the discussion, but I think as long as the will is there from this board and we have good rapport with those that are out there, we'll find a way to make it work.
Because I'm glad to hear that, because that's me talking to the business owners and saying, you know, a few months ago, hey, he was wanting to restripe and do this and do that, and let's hold up a little bit. He's painted his building, Montgomery Steakhouse, he's redone everything, and I would like to reward the people who are putting down some roots here by saying, welcome, you're helping yourself, can we help you some kind of way? And again, it just doesn't make sense to do all this nice stuff here and then you've got the ugliness there. When the Lord has blessed us in such a way, can we at least, you know, go into partnership? Because you definitely have a couple of owners there that are willing to do halvesies or whatever we need to do.
Yeah.
And I think as we would march towards an ultimate solution here, there's ways to work that out and discuss that out. And sometimes what I found in the past by working with people is sometimes their ask isn't always what you expect it to be.
Yeah.
But when you ask the question, have the discussion, that's how you really get to the answer.
We don't have to be great to get started, just to start to get great. And the only way we're going to do it is by starting. So should we put a motion on the table to at least look at it. I think I would like to make a motion to allow the city administrator, right, to award the.
Negotiate.
To what?
Negotiate.
Oh, to negotiate, yeah. To negotiate an agreement with Gunda
Gunda Corporation.
Gunda, right? Gunda Corporation.
Well, I would second whatever Jeff just said.
I got caught up in a Caddyshack moment, I'm sorry.
It has been moved and seconded to allow the city administrator to negotiate a services agreement with Gunda Corporation regarding the engineering services for McCown Street improvement. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item?
I'm just gonna abstain from the vote, just so you know.
Okay. Okay. Are you represented by one in one of these three? Okay, great. All those in favor of approving the city administrator to negotiate a services agreement with Gunda Corporation for the engineering services contract for McCown Street improvement, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, 5-1, with Ryan Lundin abstaining, but carries nonetheless. Item number 6, discussion and consideration and possible action on authorizing city staff to issue a request for qualifications for the creation of wayfinding signage on behalf of the MEDC. Richard?
Okay, back in March, we had discussion on the concept of wayfinding signage, a type of unique, distinct signage for use in the city that would help to give direction, especially in relation to the historic district and other sites of note in the city. So what we're asking for tonight is to be able to go ahead and issue an RFQ that would come back to us for, similar to the last item, professional services, but for development of wayfinding signage in the city.
Is it possible to get this wrapped up into the SOQ from the previous item? Is that something that we could incorporate into that contract?
I prefer it not to, because I feel like that this isn't really an engineering type contract. This is almost like a psychological type job.
Well, they did the
marketing
downtown
type.
plan, so I was assuming
Sorry?
they did the downtown plan so they could.
With the blue signs?
with-
Right, but you're trying to get people to want to leave their cars behind and walk more than 20 feet.
Well-
I mean, coming from like a lot of discussions that came out of this is that people want to park right in front of the places that they're eating or shopping. Whereas I feel like the signage needs to convince people that it's just a moment away.
Yeah, I
You
get
can
that,
go
but
here.
you have a gentleman that y'all works under y'all that does, he
Yes,
did our
sir.
down plan. He could potentially.
The architect is on our scene for this, so he
Does,
is.
wouldn't,
he is-
and y'all gonna need a landscape architect to do the
streetscape.
pretty stuff, the icing on the cake, and so I feel like the person who can do the icing on the cake can also do the signage.
I feel like they're
But-
completely different types of business.
So you're okay.
I'd rather do it separately.
Who
but
are we gonna go out for SOQs on this then? Wouldn't be landscape architect, it'd be some other type of planner?
It'd be like
Like a landscape, but I mean, landscaping and planning usually go hand in hand, so.
So
But-
did we look at the companies that, of the ones, of the wayfinding projects from like Yellowknife and the other ones that,
And Boulder. I remember back at the time, we had looked at some of the names, I don't remember, there's several ones, I just don't remember what they were.
do you want to table this then until the next meeting and we can get that
We could
so
bring
that you
back.
guys can look at what I'm talking about and why I feel it's a different type thing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why it's different, but you know more about it than me, so yeah, if you wanna bring
We're
back
definitely
education
coming-
to.
I was gonna say, we're definitely coming at it from a different perspective. You're a logical engineer, and I guess I used to be, but I've used more my graphic design and manipulation
'Cause,
psychology skills.
Yeah.
We did this
The-
one other time, and maybe we didn't do the right kind of signage. Is this all over the town, the signage that you're talking about?
So
Or is
it would
this,
definitely, you'd have different levels of it. Part of it is to get people to stop from high-moving vehicles and go to parking, or want to go to different things like the library or Fernland or Memory Park
Okay.
or historic downtown.
because on 105, TxDOT has control
They
over
do.
the signs
They
that
do,
they
but we have
put.
that's in their
But
right of
in-
way, but we can also work with landowners to
town.
put things outside of the TxDOT right of way. So there is a little bit of room for manipulation on that. And then once people have parked, then like I said, you know, it's for them to be able to see what it is Montgomery has to offer, how to get there, and that kind of thing. So what's the best way to present it, keep everything cohesive, using the right, not fonts, but, you know, like picking our colors, picking our fonts, picking,
But it's not street signs and things like that. This is just
this would be
directional.
more directional and depending on where you are,
Information sign.
ground level when you're on foot and
Okay.
bigger and less informational when you're in a vehicle.
So this is a study that will probably be done by some type of planner. Is that what you're saying? And it's not putting the signs in the ground, it's coming up with
They would give us
What they would say,
signage
where they
as
go.
well as,
the location and look.
they would give us location, signage, and information for future signs when we want to
Seems
build
we're a
out
little-
additional.
Ahead of the game, if we're gonna be doing all this development, wouldn't we put the signs in at that point?
No, we're just doing directional downtown stuff, right? Is that what our scope of, that's what was in the downtown plan, was a downtown signage plan. And obviously you want to direct them away from downtown for parking. So that's the limits of this thing. I think I get what you're saying, I'm okay with it, so.
Or do you think we need to wait until we have more of downtown done? Is that what you're saying, Joe?
Yes.
Downtown and connectivity with the sidewalk at Klepper, and if we're gonna send them to Fernwood, we have a good walkage to do
Yeah, I
that.
think we need to get, we're a little ahead of the game on that.
What I'm thinking is that you're gonna, it's like you want to have a plan in place so that whenever we do McCown Street, you can put the signs on McCown Street.
Right, because from a point of timing,
Yeah.
you'd want to have this nailed down, like you say. So
That makes
the moment you're done with McCown Street or portions of it, you're ready to put the signs in.
Yeah, that makes
You're
sense.
not spending 3 more months. still
I hate,
designing.
I'm a, you know, by trade, I'm a drainage planner, but even I hate planning and planning and planning and never getting anything done. So that's what I'm cautious of. It's like not spend all of our money on planning and never do anything.
Yep.
But I think it is important at least to have, you know, if we're doing McCown Street, it'd be nice to know what the drainage is doing, what the water is doing, what the signs are doing for that corridor, so that we can go to the next one. We've got a plan in place there and how they connect. That
Where
makes
they're all
sense.
working in parallel.
I can't imagine this being terribly expensive, and if it is, then we can shoot it down and maybe come up with a
Yeah,
different
we're just
approach.
authorizing the request for qualifications, right?
Yeah.
Right, and then I would come back, you know, again, we would presumably get several in, we would evaluate them, come back to this board and go,
Right.
we think this is the best one.
Well, as long as it takes to get anything done around here, we probably should get going.
We would have an estimate for it on this third time. It was $50,000.
For the signage package, you see?
That's
what we budgeted for.
The plan, the way
Just the plan.
finding and signage study.
That's more than enough, yeah, I would think.
Well, in place.
So should we make a motion to at least get started?
To get started on the RFQ.
You want to make the motion?
I'll make the motion to
Authorize the city staff?
authorize city staff to issue a request for qualifications for the creation of wayfinding signage on behalf of the MEDC.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded by Jeff that we authorize the city staff to issue an RFQ for the creation of wayfinding signage on behalf of the MEDC. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any other discussion on this item? All those in favor of authorizing city staff to issue an RFQ for the creation of wayfinding signage on behalf of MEDC, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion passes unanimously, and we will authorize city staff to issue an RFQ for the creation of wayfinding signage on behalf of the MEDC. Item number 7, consideration of possible action to authorize MEDC board members to begin presenting the TERS concept to City Council, MISD, and Montgomery County and approve up to $20,000 in expenditure for professional services to create a TERS.
Over the last few months, MEDC has discussed the creation of a TERS mechanism, a tax income reinvestment zone, that's TERS, to encourage development along the 105, 149 corridors. That's in keeping with the city's historical nature, as well as to provide a funding mechanism to encourage improvements to existing structures that are in line with this goal. It's probably of note to mention that several years ago, the Texas legislature took away one of the primary tools of the city in being able to regulate building materials that we were using to help regulate a certain historic look. And so, this is partly towards the effort of giving us another tool to be able to work with these businesses in a different way than what we lost through the regulatory approach. The creation of a TERS will be something that City Council will need to approve because it can only be approved by an entity that is funded by property taxes. MEDC can work and help spearhead this effort by paying for legal and filing fees required for the creation of the district, as well as working to present this item to City Council and other taxing authorities in the area. In this area, that would be MISD in Montgomery County. MEDC would need to create a presentation with a compelling argument for the creation of this district, as well as a timeline for rolling it out to other taxing entities. MEDC would, we think, should base its filing upon the McKinney TERS, which is similar in several ways to what we envision for the city. Desired growth along specific corridors, revitalizing a historic downtown, maintaining and promoting buildings of a historic nature, and similar. It's also envisioned that the Montgomery TERS would promote entrepreneurship and sales tax generating businesses as a part of their drive in this effort. For further information, the McKinney TERS documents and an informal document about TERS generally that's produced from Flower Mound have been attached. And a particular note on here on page 76 of the packet, which is the first page following the agenda report, is a chart that shows how tax increment financing works. What would happen is when this would be, presuming all the entities would want to move forward, when you begin, you have your tax valuation at that time. As the property value goes up, the increment that above that point is now taken off for this particular purpose. The taxing authorities continue to get what they were getting before on the taxable value. And then on page 82, which is part of the McKinney TERS document, is a map of the area, and you can see how their map on that page 82, follows several primary or multiple primary road corridors. What we're envisioning here primarily is the 105, 149 corridors.
I love TERS,
Yes.
and I'm going to tell you why. If you've ever been to McKinney and see what they've done to that city, it is magical when you go to up near Dallas. As a business owner in the historic district, to be able to have some lock and step support from the city, I think would be delightful and welcomed, because and the city can have some control over something everybody wants, and that's to keep our historic feel of this town. And so by incenting business owners to create something that we all know will bring tourism, and that's what the MEDC is all about. And I love the fact that there's a mechanism to propagate that. So I'm a big, huge fan of TERS.
How do you know this is on your property? Or is it on individual property? How do you know that?
How do you know that the TERS is on, or that this mechanism can be used? Well, I think it goes back to our master plan and creating, helping businesses to sort of to fund through tax relief. Am I not mistaken in that?
Yeah, that's
I believe that it's picked by parcel, though. It's not like a general cloud that settles over an area. You have to pick certain parcels that are in it.
Developed or undeveloped?
Both.
Both.
So,
And Carol, it's like working with him, school tax and other property taxes to give some relief to these businesses in the form of tax relief, so that they can.
their taxes don't go up.
Right.
They just have an extra
well, okay.
tax
Can I, so
that
what
goes on
happens
there.
is, everything stays the
Because
same.
I wouldn't want,
Everything stays the same. If the appraisal district, say it raises your tax by $10,000, instead of going to all of the entities that are part of that $10,000 raising, for the MISD, for Montgomery City, and for Montgomery County, the three that we're envisioning being part of this, it would instead go to a separate TERS pot. Okay, so if the appraisal district does the raising, that's all exactly the same, but those three entities in our hypothetical.
They stay static.
Well, no, that would all still happen, but it goes into a pot. So if you're a business, your $10,000, we'll assume that it's everything. So let's say that those are the only three entities for ease sake. Your $10,000 goes into the TERS pot, and say you have a project that you want to do that costs $20,000, and you can apply then for your $10,000 to get it back to put towards your project. Because basically that money becomes a tool for you to use to get back.
It's an
on when you're
incentive, it's an
doing your project.
incentive, Carol, for businesses to try to elevate their,
Yeah. It does not in any way, TERS or no TERS, the amount of property taxes that get paid by any particular landowner do not change.
It doesn't
It
change.
stays exactly the
It's just
same.
where it
And what
goes.
it does is, what it does is as your property value goes up, let's just say your property's valued at $100,000 today, and then you lay the TERS on, and it goes up to $150,000. That first $100,000 of property value still distributes exactly to the property taxing entities as it did. But the increased value now goes into that TERS pot and can be used for these various purposes.
And it doesn't have to be the entirety of the 50 grand. That board of directors can set that as a 60-40 or a 70-30 or whatever it wants. And so to me, it's again, it's upfront incentive. It has that effect of saying, you know, if we could just encourage somebody to develop something that maybe needs a little work, but with a little vision to that work and a promise of back-end reimbursement, hey, we can get somebody going on something that ordinarily would just sit there and do nothing.
And one place property taxing entities get criticized is, the increased revenue we get based on increased property values. That's a way to turn this back around into a specifically useful purpose.
And as more and more businesses do it, then that contributes more and more to the pool.
so we don't get any money unless the appraisal district raises your appraisal,
That would be correct. So if you
right?
lived in, if
So
you had a business.
if I have an empty piece of property on 105 and nothing's on it and the appraisal district doesn't raise the appraisal on it,
Then it would contribute.
there's no money there
Right,
in a
then-
pot.
Then it would contribute zero from that particular parcel.
And
Nice to have
and
this
who
generous
keeps
last
up with all of that?
this year taxes should
The
be
appraisal
30%
district
across the board.
Well,
notifies the city
What do you think about it?
when
I don't know, I haven't seen them
people's
use this way
property
before, so.
has been raised? How do you know that you've got money in a pot?
Let's just assume for the sake of discussion, this, a TERS would be created here for this. It appoints its own board and it manages its own interest. Or it doesn't do the appointment, the taxing entities do that.
So
So it has to manage those out.
whoever's head of that board has to keep up with
I
whose
think that
property
that's
has
an accounting
raised.
firm.
That they would coordinate with with appropriate financial people who do this.
And then if the city does it, then MISD would do it, and they would have money in a pot? No, the
I
money
think what
comes to the
happens-
city.
I think what would happen is that at the end of the year, or when we get our transfers from
Right.
the county assessor, that we would tell them, based on the TERS, what portion of it goes to the TERS from the various taxing entities. Because there's a period of time in between when the values are set and, they close the books, but they don't transfer money. So I think that it would be between that period of time that they would settle all the accounts and figure out who owes what.
So this board has to meet quite often to keep up with all of that?
I think it depends on how many applications there are for buildings. But back to your question about vacant land, so so if somebody had, say, 20 acres, and the term of the TERS was 20 years, say it was just valued at $1,000. If they wanted to do a $20 million project on it, then they would be potentially, revaluing their land by effectively $20 million. And then they would say, okay, this is how much my tax is changing. I'm meeting 100% of your criteria. I'd like all my property tax back from your entity over the whole 25 years of your TERS. Well, that could be a significant amount of money,
Yep.
which would make it a huge reason for them to choose to invest
Yes.
in the city. And they're paying themselves back really with their own money. And from the city's perspective, then, one of the things that we talked about potentially making as a criteria is that they generate sales tax dollars.
Yep.
Well, then the city gets paid
Twice.
for the services that it provides through sales tax. So, the increase in police needs or something like that could be provided through sales tax.
It's literally no skin off the city's back.
Right.
Because
I'm not worried about the city, I'm worried about the businesses and the landowners with property tax going up. But this doesn't make, if
Right.
we implement this, this does not make property taxes go up.
no, that's not
It's
in
the-
our, that's not in our
It's
preview.
the county.
It just changes where
It's
it
allocated.
would be allocated
Okay.
to be spent.
Because I got asked today, I don't want my business's taxes to go up
Absolutely.
because I own a business on this piece of
Right.
property.
And this would not
I
in
didn't
any
know.
way make their taxes go up.
Right.
Okay,
What it could do is be able to offer them an incentive to do certain activities,
right, right.
which
If
might be
you
in
fall
keeping
under
with the
one of
TERS.
these.
It's almost like
Yeah.
a separate MEDC kind of thing, but specifically
Very
for,
specifically targeted.
for development of,
It's got
you
its-
need a new parking lot, or like we were just talking about, and we want to create some development within these businesses. Their participation is the fact their taxes went up and it was reallocated back to their companies, back to their businesses.
And the people who invest more in the community have the potential to get more back.
Well, if you've ever seen the town of McKinney, it's like fairyland. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful places in Texas. And everybody that I stayed at a bed and breakfast there, they just can't talk enough about how TERS was so instrumental in helping them to make sound decisions because they knew what their property taxes were going to be. It didn't, and by reinvesting in their bed and breakfast, redeveloping it, improving it, they stayed booked up all the time, which increased hotel tax and so on and so on. So it's a very great mechanism that the state has given municipalities to be able to create development. So I'm a
And one
big
other
fan.
side effect is that if your neighbor chooses not to, and that's fine, but the appraisal district might increase anyway. I mean, I assume all of you were unhappy this last year, right, because we all got, mowed over by the appraisal district. So, that increase, even if we didn't make an improvement, so we wouldn't be eligible to apply for a rebate, that increase is still in the pot of the TERS. So the TERS will start collecting money, which means that it still has the ability to invest in projects that are not specifically tied to a business. So you could invest in medians, you could invest in lighting, you could invest in lots of other things, or you could see more of the public infrastructure investments within the TERS area.
I'm a little bit fuzzy on a few things. The rebate, what is the rebate?
Sorry, just if you apply for, I was using that word as, again, the person who invested $20 million to take raw land to a project. and then they asked for, that was their own money that they're asking.
A tax
for.
advantage.
To get back from the TERS?
Yes.
Okay, so.
That might not be the appropriate word, but
the-
that's how I was thinking of it.
Yeah, because you can use that money from the TERS to promote stuff like that, right? What's the difference between the TERS and the MEDC if we're already putting all of our money back in the downtown?
Coming from property
Well,
tax.
Well, we're getting ours from sales tax, but-
It's additional funds from property tax, so we don't have to pull.
So where does the ISD not get increased, or is this just city taxes that we're talking about? Or is the ISD taxes capped now too at that base?
So each taxing entity can choose to participate or not. So the city only charges 0.4 as
Right,
taxes.
it's not very substantial.
It's not. The
Compared to the
county
ISD,
is
yeah.
0.43-ish, but the ISD is like 1.26.
So have we talked to the ISD whether they want to participate in this or
Well, we
not?
haven't wanted to be premature.
Yeah, we haven't.
We have to have
decided
buy-in
yet.
from this group first. Then we need to talk to
Then
city
you got to go to
council.
city council.
The MISD would probably be the most difficult conversation, but at the same time, I think the key there is showing them the long-term financial benefits of increasing all the values and the other increases that come with it.
So this is really
The
just-
population ultimately benefits them financially upward too.
This is ensuring that the money that gets created in downtown area stays in the downtown area, essentially.
Well, being that it's property tax based, every entity will still get their share that they had coming to them. Plus, then what goes into the TERS it'd be subject to the conditions that the TERS sets up for being able to provide that money back up for incentives.
In the form of
But the goal of
incentives or grants.
but the goal of the TERS, you'd be drawing the map much as like
So this is really,
McKinney drew on page 82, so that money comes from that area, but it gets used in that area.
so what's happening now is you're asking us to pay for a study, but ultimately it's the city council that's going to pay the price of a TERS, because they're the ones who are going to lose out on future tax revenue because it's capped.
Maybe.
Which, so really, that's not up to us. We're a sales tax entity. The city's, getting property tax. So,
But at the same time,
but that's really, it's not up to us. There's nothing at risk for
Right.
us. It's all on the city council,
That's right.
really.
So I'm thinking that we act as the lobbyists and the
Well,
cheerleaders of this so I kind of, Wade was really interested in this, so I think that he's cheerleader number one. So Wade and I were thinking about putting together the presentation to put together to city council to ask city council to sponsor this and to pass.
Can we get feelers out to council and Mayor Pro Tem on whether, I know other council members on whether they're on board before we spend money to do this? Can we just say,
well, I think the goal is to have the presentation to council before spending significant sums of money.
I was gonna say, so at this
is
point-
that what's going on here?
Yeah, well, so if MEDC is not willing to spend money to launch this, then there's no point in us doing anything.
No, I'm willing to spend the money. I just want to make sure that we don't waste money because it gets killed at council.
Well,
My intent was to get council to approve it, and then.
Well, if you can't get council to approve it, there's no reason to do anything.
well, it's also keep in mind.
That's what I'm saying.
I think it's important to keep in mind, council would have to approve any expenditure over $10,000.
Okay.
So even your approval of $20,000 for this can't get spent without council approving.
Okay.
That.
Which means they're not
You have to have
going to,
council
and they're not
buy-in.
going to approve it if they're not in favor of it.
Right,
Exactly.
but I disagree in terms
Exactly.
of it's a losing proposition for them, because if you set it up where the maximum amount that somebody, if you set it up as a grid, where a historic look is a good portion of,
Well-
Cheatham's look, so 2-story historic look. and
No, I get
cost
that,
is
yeah.
Sales tax generating, then, the city gets a win-win, because if they get sales tax to replace what they're losing in property
Yeah.
tax, then
I don't think it is a lose for the city. I'm just saying potential. There's
Right.
there's
there's
small.
definitely a push-pull, because you feel
Yeah.
like you're giving up something.
You're losing, basically you're losing a little bit of control, over a certain part of the city. Just a little bit, not a lot. But I think I think it makes sense that everyone loves the downtown and wants to reinvest in it. So
And I think
That's
people
obvious.
want the idea of, looking at, do you want like the car wash megalopolis, or do you want more of
And
like
I guess-
Cheatham's buildings look like?
That's my second question. Is the secondary motivation behind this, does it give you regulatory authority over what can and can't go inside the TERS?
No,
Okay.
but you can
Not
have people
regulatory.
want to do what you want them to do.
Incentivize,
which is-
not regulate.
How are we incentivizing them? By giving them TERS money to do it?
Well,
So how do you sell a car?
No,
Say
per se.
a car wash wants to come in and we don't want it. Do we just pay them to go away? That's what I'm trying to like. I mean, we don't have. There's only so much you can do with
I mean,
that.
look
So
at the value of a piece of, and Dan can say this, the value of a piece of property is based on its highest use. But the highest use includes like cash from the government. So if the cash from the government includes the tourist money on top of it,
you could get something nicer than a car wash, is what you're saying?
right, because
A hotel.
basically they're getting all of their property tax back by over 20 years. By building in line with what we're looking for, they can pay more for the land. Or it's cheaper to build, depending on how you look at it, but ultimately their return on investment is much better because they're getting their property tax back.
And there's a limit to the timeline that they get that incentive.
Generally, tourists have a sunset on them, which is also what makes them attractive to the government because this doesn't last forever. And what you're doing is you're building the growth forward. You're making it attractive. You're getting the good quality stuff that lasts longer. And you've built a more attractive, durable, quality, area. And then at the end of it, you get all your property tax, but it's at a
Yeah,
much
just
higher.
like this, it stays, you get all
Oh,
this
yeah,
incentive, and boom, 20 years down the road, it's worth $1 gazillion, and all the taxes start flowing back
And the
in.
other side of the
You're just
coin-
locked. That little orange piece is locked into that zone,
Right.
which is the only limitation to it. Is
Right.
that you're losing a little bit of control there and a little bit of revenue there. But I think MEDC and the councils are pretty much on the same page, I think, as far as wanting to reinvest in downtown.
Yeah, I
It's the heart of the city, so
Right.
I see it as a win. I'm just,
Right, and even
Well,
high-
the other side of the coin on this thing is the fact that a lot of times cities and taxing entities, they just raise the values and keep going to where the dirt costs too much to put a car wash.
Exactly.
You just tax them out of town is what you do.
Well, for one thing, we only meet once a month, and you've seen people coming in wanting to put in signs and coming to us for different things. I mean, this TERS money would definitely fall in line with things like that, where we'd have a mechanism to be able to allocate based on that, and MEDC could be use their funds more for bigger projects like redevelopment, but it's a mechanism for driving people to do some things that we know will make the city a better
I
place.
think one thing that can help, of course, Carol and I are here. As you know, I was a strong promoter of tours. And the more I read, the more I'm sold. And I think what we have to do is we know our people. And our people are conservative. It is what it is. And when you grow wealth, it's a win-win, okay? So there's absolutely no risk in this little town of 4.5 square, in my view, of taking the approach of being able to help people like Mr. Cheatham a few weeks ago came in, wanted to do some landscaping. All of us looking at each other and thinking, where exactly should we pull it? And if we pull it for this person, are we gonna have to do it for another?
Right.
Okay? Well, this is where the TERS helps the people who are existing. Please make your place more beautiful. As that happens, values naturally go up, wealth has grown. Our city budget is still largely sales tax, isn't it? It's not ad valorem.
Yeah.
And so, and again, you factor in the jobs with the shopping. That's how you grow the wealth. And that's definitely what the tendency of the taxpayers here is. And it's not taxes. And if we just keep saying the same thing and stand behind it, it's not creating more taxes. It's definitely keeping it right there where it is. The selling point for the school district, as broad as it is, they have a number of city entities. But this little 4.5 square has the potential to do something like Shenandoah. As a matter of fact, we're right there with Shenandoah. And our ability to create that wealth, and that can only help them. They'll have to gauge to what degree, but my gut feeling is the ISD could be sold as well. Whether they are or not, I think it's a win-win.
It's not going to be a huge hit for the ISD, this 4 square. So I think,
Well, it's not all 4 square miles, and it's only really the commercial area.
right,
So we're not going to be putting heads in their schools to put the burden on them. I think,
Sure.
you know, again, if we build a more durable, attractive, historic area.
people want to come to the area. They don't come to live in one spot and don't visit downtown and the
Right.
various
I
businesses.
think it will make it more attractive. I also think it means that home values will be more stable to higher, and that will make things easier for planning for the school district. I think it'll be easier for the teachers to have, you know, stable household values and stable households generally. And then back to Byron's comments about conservative voters generally, I mean, I think it's just Texas prefers to do things that they want to do. And we're not telling people what they have to do. We're saying this is the incentive structure. If you want to do it, fabulous. If you want to be like Carol's example where you have 20 acres and you just like it the way it is, that's fine. You know, just leave it be. You know, this is all your choice. And what your fabulous project is going to be, if you're Jeff's example, I don't know. You do it. You know, this is kind of.
When I joined in MEDC, this is exactly what I was hoping we would be able to accomplish. To me, this is a huge win for the businesses and the potential businesses coming in. If we're Economic Development Corporation. Our goal is to bring economic development into this community, and we need some sort of mechanism to do it. I hate telling Troy, we give you a sign, we got to give everybody a sign, but if we have TERS, we have a mechanism to be able to do that. So
And the
anyway.
bigger your investment, the more
Yeah.
your return is.
Exactly. You're growing your investment and we're growing you back. And that's what this is about.
So the prediction of up to $20,000 is said or proposed to possibly come out of professional services. We've already spent 30, so that would assume an amendment of some kind.
Well, we're thinking more than likely the level of discussion that has to take place probably pushes that into the next fiscal year.
Okay.
But if it needs to happen at the end of this fiscal year, we can then look at the appropriate budget amendment.
Because that is a process of getting
Yeah.
buy-in
Yeah.
and getting a director's
Yeah.
board, a representation, all people who do buy in. So it is a process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we wanted to be upfront to be realistic about, that there would be a significant amount of professional services needed to put that together, and that's where the 20,000 comes from. But as I said before, it wouldn't be spent right away. Obviously, you need to get that buy-in, because if no entity wants to do it, there's no point to proceed
I
further.
love it.
I think most people here think
Yeah.
it's a good direction to go. You're just gonna have to get the buy-in at different levels.
Do you know how many,
Oh, go ahead.
do you know how many other, is it just cities that do this?
It's primarily cities.
How many other in Montgomery County do this? Has a TERS?
I don't know about Montgomery County, and talking to our attorneys, they're familiar with some in the Houston area,
Right.
and they tend to be in developing areas, and so I wouldn't be surprised if there is one or more in Montgomery County being more recent of development. You ideally want to get this ahead of a lot of your development to get more value for it.
Or I think like is it Memorial down in Houston? It's a redevelopment project.
Yeah.
So, you've got something that's more dilapidated that needs the money to come into, to fix it up, and so that's
So the money comes to the city once a year, because that's when we get our appraisal, and then we don't pay it until the next year. So the city doesn't get the money until it's on the books at the county, which would be a year or two.
Right, there's a definite lead time here, because, even, once you get that TERS set, you're gonna have to wait for the next tax
Paying
round.
arrears.
Right.
Yeah, so that's, this is a long-term process.
but it's a start.
Yeah, but, you know, it's like the old adage of when's the best time to plant an
So-
oak tree?
What does the city do with the money
Yeah, let's go.
that nobody asks back for? It just sits in the account, and then there's certain things the city can spend it on?
It
Like
wouldn't be
hotel,
it wouldn't be the-
motel,
It
that-
wouldn't be the city itself, it would have to be the TERS board.
Yeah, because the turtle.
Yeah, but they have to go and get permission from the city, it said. Did you not read that? The TERS board cannot spend it or anything without the city's permission. I thought I read that. Maybe I didn't read that.
I was just thinking about the various entities in terms of who would have the approval to spend, like once the money gets mingled, I'm not sure.
Right. So it could just be sitting there for a certain amount of years, and then they mentioned that after a certain amount of years, I'm not able to get my money back. So it's still just sitting there.
But, well, the whole point of organizing this would be to encourage certain development activity. So I think it's incumbent on the TERS to try to drive it towards making those things happen. I would say it's entirely.
TERS board would be a very busy board
I
to
think
make sure that they got the information out, that now our applications are open, or
Right.
now our,
But I also think that once, you know, once entities out there, once businesses start seeing things be approved, money being spent, improvements being made that go back to the character of the city, they're going to be more aware of that could also be them. And so then they will be more aware of that option is available to them as well.
I'm going to have to read up on it more.
It's a complicated topic, it certainly
It is.
I
I'm
think,
confused.
yeah, I think there's like, if I'm
I
looking at this
understand
multiple levels, you know?
Making things pretty, but I'm not understanding the concept of the process of it.
Yeah.
Making things pretty.
Well, what we're trying to decide now is if we just want to get it in front of council to see if there's something that there's even any traction.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not spending any money. We're
See if
just,
they'll shoot it down or see if they're full.
yeah, I mean, and in the meantime, Carol, we don't have to make a decision on financing anything permanently until they actually decide yes or no.
This is actually saying we're going to approve the creation of the TERS.
We're gonna,
No, you-
And approve up to 20,000
We
in
can't approve the
expenditures.
creation of a TERS, because
No.
that's city council.
Yeah, but we're
No,
we're giving our.
You would authorize this board to speak to council and other entities on behalf of them considering to approve the TERS.
So you
Basically
spend.
start lobbying.
Yeah, I mean, the recommendation is to authorize the MEDC board of directors to begin presenting the TERS concept to city council, MISD, and Montgomery County, and then it goes on.
I think we gotta at least roll the dice to see if there's a possibility.
I'm fine with
So
that.
Carol, are you
Can I-
against the idea of the TERS because you want to know more before you say yes or no, or?
No, I'm going to vote for it tonight,
Mm-hmm.
so you can move forward with it. And then when you come to council, I hope my questions are
I
answered.
think, Richard, it might
If
help because
My questions are not answered at council, then I'm not voting for it.
and toward that end, I talked to one of the developers and I asked him last December,
And I'm
would you be in
gonna read
favor
up
of a
on it.
tourist district? I can tell you that's Mr. Cheatham, and it might be helpful for a developer to come and approach the council and say, what is this developer thinking? Because I can guarantee you what he's not thinking. If I'm not going to get some sort of incentive to put development, then we're going to keep driving by it. And here's my other point. Magnolia might get that. Tomball might get that. I'm just saying, you know, when we're needing these millions of dollars of water and infrastructure and roads and everything else, you create wealth. Now, we wish we could snap our fingers, but if we don't get started at some point in 5 years when that hits a what, triple population? I don't see us getting 10,000 people for a good long while, right? So we have a certain amount of time though before you get that, you become home rule and all this stuff. So it's a way of getting started to meet some capital gains that we need to see. But I know if we don't have it, I don't have as much confidence that, you know, our two major thoroughfares that are involved here are gonna get developed in time for us to meet hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who are wanting to build, you know? I mean, we already know what we know, and we anticipate more want to come in, Pulte and others that are hitting us up. And I talk to business people all the time in chambers. They'd love to come sit up in our little downtown, wouldn't they? So they're coming. My hope is that if you have a long-term plan, but we could use some people with the expertise, with the mindset that's coming to the council and saying, here's what I'm thinking if you don't do it, and here's what I'm thinking if you do, you know what I'm saying? It may give the council some stuff that we're not able as developers to think of how they're thinking, because we're trying to attract some developers to develop, and here's the other point is some spaces that nobody might not even think of, you know, touching, because when you go west, we got a lot of room there in the west, right?
When, you know,
We go all the way to Lone Star
like
Parkway.
Kroger, we have this tax reimbursement rebate. This would probably, you know, circumvent, or not circumvent, but replace that, because now they're getting it on a property tax level where they can generally look at that and go, okay, my business is going to be appraised at, like she said, 10 million or whatever. That far outweighs any kind of a, you know, stipend, sales tax rebate. So the city keeps all the sales tax, but these other entities are the ones.
Well, so the Kroger 380 was the largest deal that the city has ever done and probably will ever do. And the sales tax portion of it is the largest portion of the 380 agreement. I mean, like, if you look at our budget, how much money that the EDC puts into that just shows you the magnitude.
That wouldn't be necessary if we had a TERS.
Well, what the TERS does is it allows small people and large people to get access to tax
Those same
rebates.
kind of deals, yeah.
Sorry, not rebates, but whatever they are, tax
Yeah.
agreements.
Right.
One of the reasons that you have to have a large deal for it is because the legal fees are so high and the thresholds are high just to be negotiating like a Chapter 380 agreement. So these are, you know, anticipated that you could have smaller projects as part of this to have access.
So that we can move on, can I make a motion that we consider, well, it'd be a recommendation really more than anything else, right?
Well, it's listed on the page's recommendation. You need to make it in the form of a motion if that's what you want to do.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion. I'm trying to find, which page are we on?
75.
I lost my page, hang on.
Is it 75?
75, top of the page.
I got it, I see it. I'd like to make a motion that we authorize to begin presenting TERS concept to the City Council, MISD, and Montgomery County, and approve up to $20,000 expenditure for professional services to create a TERS district when approval is gained by the City Council for a TERS district.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded to authorize MEDC board members to begin presenting the TERS concept to City Council, MISD, and Montgomery County, and to approve, once this approval has been obtained from City Council, to approve up to $20,000 expenditure for professional services to create a TERS district. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? I have a couple things. So Lori found on MCAT's website there are TERS in Montgomery County. There are 7. Willis has 2. Oak Ridge has 2. There's one called RZ3A, one called RZ3, and there's one for the city of Houston. And to me, it sounded like Carol's questions were very much back end, like in terms of how it actually works. So we might request either from Willis or Oak Ridge access to their person who runs their
TERS.
people.
That would help.
We can get them access to that either during the week or a Zoom call. Richard, could you maybe set that up? Zoom call with their TERS administrator?
The other thing too is if you guys are putting together a presentation for City Council, it'd probably be helpful to have some area,
Right.
cities, sort of their stats and what it's done for them.
And also, are you all comfortable with Wade being the face of this?
Love Wade.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make that clear, that was okay with everyone. All right, those were just minor things before we went through. Any further discussion? Then I will call for the vote. All those in favor of authorizing MEDC board members to begin presenting the TERS concept to City Council, MISD, and Montgomery County, And once that approval has been obtained from City Council, approve up to $20,000 expenditure for professional services to create the TERS, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will authorize MEDC board members to begin presenting the TERS concept to City Council, MISD, and Montgomery County, and approve up to $20,000 expenditure for professional services once the approval from City Council has been obtained. Item number 8, consideration and possible action related to the feasibility of participating in road development agreement with local developer.
All right, the tax stop work and accompanying traffic issues on 105, well, we've already kind of touched on that with other items tonight, so I think we're all familiar with that. But they've affected mobility and to some degree traffic safety in the area on the east side of the city on 105 recently. Is everyone familiar with the Chipotle and Express area? That there is a parallel road that's behind the development that runs from 1486 and basically to McCoy's, allows access to
2854 to McCoy's, right.
Yes.
Thank you, 2054. You know, it allows access not just to those businesses, but other approaches to 105 and some including cross streets. So that's really what we're talking about here. Where Kroger is, and you have the car wash, there's one of those roads that goes about 3/4 of the way, doesn't quite reach Buffalo Springs.
Right.
And then if you take that and project it farther to the west, there's planned to be another similar road there when there's commercial development. So,
Connecting Buffalo Springs Drive and CB Stewart.
thank you.
Yes.
And so the point of this, rather than just read through a discussion point is, you know, I think there's a lot of potential benefit for us to consider working with the developer there, rather than them waiting to put that road in after their businesses are coming in. Is there room with the EDC to support financially to where we could loan the money? Would they build that road early to provide that connectivity to city residents, to provide routes that stay off of 105, and have an agreement where they reimburse that money back to MEDC on a payment schedule that could correspond either with time or with them putting the businesses in place? So,
That's an
the
interesting.
concept here would be a development agreement to encourage the early development of that road space to provide safe access to the local residents of the area.
But MEDC's paying for it.
But MEDC would front the money, but we'd have a development agreement where
Right.
MEDC would get repaid. MEDC would act to try to facilitate getting this done sooner,
So-
because rather than them waiting until their businesses are open.
So where is that money coming from?
I think we'd have to do it from our bank balance,
And to which
but we'd get it back at some point. And then, I think it's in there, but when we were interviewing for attorneys, the attorney mentioned, this was a couple of years ago, he mentioned that there's something with projects over a certain amount. Usually when companies buy the supplies, I can't remember what the term is, but they pay sales tax based on where their office is, not where they deliver the supplies to. Well, if the project's over a certain amount, you can there's a term, and you can have the sales tax paid to the entity where the supplies are delivered to. You know, if we put that into the development contract, that all of the buildings built along that, we would make more money than by holding that in interest, or, you know, holding that money in interest in our bank account, and also benefit by having the road in there anyway.
Yeah, it's a safety issue too. I mean, I've coming here from Conroe, going here, I mean, with the barricades in there, and I hate to say it, you still saw the idiots trying to cross from Chick-fil-A over to Kroger.
Oh, yeah.
As opposed to going down to the light.
Right.
You know, it takes 3 more seconds.
Or even not, like for us, you know, we were towing a trailer, and you want to pull into Kroger, well, you can't safely, there's no deceleration lane big enough to start turning into Kroger.
I've been a cop for 22 years, I love those kind of guys. Bust them up.
So even with
I do stupid stuff.
this item is to just see, you know, is this board interested in having that discussion, so that city staff could work with the city attorney, reach out to the developer, have that conversation.
I think it makes sense as long as we get the money back for it in the long term.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it definitely has to be a development agreement that would bring repayment back.
I think it'd probably be a win-win.
It may
We get the
encourage
road
them
in
to
early for
continue to
them.
move
Yep.
west because the road's there.
Yeah.
So I think either you could have it in a legal agreement where if they sell the property, then they have to pay us the money before they receive the proceeds, so we could put a lien on it and then,
that's all good.
or they
We
would
would
get a
have- I would
certificate of
assume we would have
occupancy
it.
before they pay it back, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll point out the discussion tonight,
So do you guys feel like around, I mean, because the current price is around $300,000 according to the engineer, but I mean, in a year, it could be $500,000.
Much more than that.
I'll point out this agenda item is not to move forward with spending that money. It's to discuss the feasibility of doing it. So if it's gonna move forward, it's gotta come back to you to approve.
Yeah, and city council too.
Yes, it would.
I think
Okay,
we're
I'll
open.
make that motion
I'll second.
to discuss the feasibility study.
It has been moved and seconded by Carol and Jeff to move forward with discussing the feasibility of participating in road development agreement with the local developer. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item?
I think it was
Dan.
Dan.
Dan
Oh,
was,
sorry.
yeah, don't get me in that.
Or,
Jeff is still confused about the other motion earlier.
I'm still trying to figure out who seconded the second on that. I don't want to be the second.
Y'all. All right, all those in favor of moving forward with the feasibility of participating in road development agreement with the local developer, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will move forward with the feasibility of participating in the road development agreement with the local developer. Item number 9, discussion and consideration to authorize the city administrator to approve a proposal for an updated demographic profile for a cost not to exceed $1,000.
Okay, in the past, the EDC has periodically paid for demographic information that's covered our city's retail trade area. The last time we received this, it was produced in 2018 for a cost of $1,500. Since that time, Montgomery has undergone many significant changes, and grown quite a bit in terms of population. And there is updated census data available from the U.S. Census. So the information can be used for marketing the city, for entrepreneurship, business plans, to help the city understand its own growth prospects of what's happened and likely to happen when we're making our planning. Travis Miller, who is a local statistician and demographer, is offering to produce a product that is similar to what we received previously and is also willing to provide an overlay that would include anticipated housing developments that we know would be coming in the area. Since these projects are a significant size relative to the current size of Montgomery, it'd be interesting to allow us to see what these impacts would be on our demographic projections for the area. And he's open to the information providing additional unique Montgomery-specific information and graphs that we may not be able to get with a larger firm that does this generically for a number of cities. His anticipated completion date would be September 30th of this year. And what you see attached is a copy of the data from the retail coach that was previously provided in 2018. This information is posted to our website.
I make a motion to authorize the city administrator to approve a proposal for an updated demographic profile for a cost not to exceed $1,000.
A second.
It has been moved and seconded to authorize the city administrator to approve a proposal for an updated demographic profile for a cost not to exceed $1,000. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor to authorize the city administrator to approve a proposal for an updated demographic profile for a cost not to exceed $1,000 say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will authorize the city administrator to approve a proposal for an updated demographic profile for a cost not to exceed $1,000. Item number 10, discussion and consideration of MEDC's financial participation in the purchase and installation of 3 private parking signs in the downtown area.
Wayne Kung, owner of Montgomery Steakhouse, and Jesse Snyder, the owner of 202 McCown Street, have reached out to the MEDC asking for assistance with parking issues during events. In the past, MEDC has purchased some parking signage to inform where public parking locations were. Mr. Kung and Mr. Snyder have separately asked for the installation of 3 signs designated what's their shared parking area, a private parking lot. That area is designed for customer parking. And they say that would help their business and their tenants be able to deal with what they say is an overwhelming amount of traffic that sometimes comes into the city for our events. And they see that traffic is displacing their customers and that they lose customers during those periods. So the request relayed through to MEDC staff and then looked at this item. What you see presented for you is $687.35 for signage and $289.94 that would cover the cost of installation of that signage by Public Works for 3 signs to help the business in this area. And so that would be the total cost of those signs would be $977.29.
Okay. You can go on Amazon and get the same sign for $20. I bought 7 of them for my parking lot. Cozy Great bought a bunch as well. You know, they're not going to, they park in my parking lot anyway. I got people doing roof work in that little night whatever across the street from me, and everybody in their construction crew is parking in there. They don't pay any attention to the signs. Halloween comes along, shoot, everybody parks in there. I mean, there's no getting around it because people just they won't even read the sign, they could care less. And if you start towing people off, you're not going to make people happy either. It's kind of a till we find designated parking spots for events and really focus on that, I think we're kind of just, you're fighting an uphill battle a little bit. What they should do is just stick somebody out there like Rebecca did and have maybe not Boy Scouts, but somebody charge for parking in their lots. And they can either use that or they can donate it. But the fact is that we're all experiencing the same thing during events, and it's not MEDC's to take private parking, in my view. I mean, I paid for them myself. They're not that big a deal. Like I said, Amazon, $20 a sign, and you're done.
So my conclusion is the same, although I have a couple different reasons. One, I'm not sure that Public Works should be working on private property. But then, you know, also having a permanent sign that says no parking that looks like city signs as well, I don't think is the most friendly message. However, I'm very sympathetic because I understand what it is, and we have provided Public Works barricades for other businesses before. So I'm wondering if like A-frame signs that go out when we do events and Public Works, you know, I don't mind paying maybe for a dozen of those to put out in various places. To me, that seems like it's more down at a regular, you know, a level that people might see. You know, it only comes out during events when the city is responsible for the parking problems. And, you know, because to me, again, I understand the push-pull between, you know, we bring 4,000 people to town, which is 4,000 people who might shop in your store or in your restaurant, but I am sympathetic to the fact that it is your parking lot as well. Right. So I feel somewhat obligated to help mitigate the impact, but I think the A-frame signs are better, you know, and more consistent with it being a short-term problem and a short-term solution that don't, you know, impact the way downtown looks long-term.
Jim's Hardware went to Spirit Industries and bought 3 banners. Mm-hmm. And we only put them up before a event.
Before an event, yeah.
Then you also keep somebody out in the parking lot.
It does not help like they thought it would, but it has cut down.
Mm-hmm.
Same with us.
Especially on the backside where on those days they ask the employees to park there. Mm-hmm. So there are parking places for the employees to park. But then they have to patrol it.
You gotta police it, and even when you police it, you're not gonna catch them all.
So,
I mean, I'm not gonna be running people off and towing folks from the area. I mean, it's just, it creates a lot of ill will, and they'll blow you up on social media.
but the larger they are, they do read them better. But if the sign is up there every day, they're not gonna read it.
You're right.
And I think
So-
also we run into the problem of, if you do it for one or two business owners, then where do you stop? We're gonna have those signs up all over town, which again, I think.
Right, and then it's not,
Well, it's not only
cordial.
that, but then, I was gonna say, it's the friendliest little town.
Right.
But don't park here.
Well, this is more of an events communication, I think. If Debbie and her team can let people know through social media, through signage, even if it's temporary signage, but it's really up to our event coordinators to try their best to not only facilitate parking, but to also direct folks. Because people aren't trying to be ugly about it, they just don't know where
Right.
to go. So.
See a spot, like, hey, there's one right there.
Yeah, I mean, you see a big empty lot and you're going, hey, that's great. Well, in 30 minutes, there's going to be a wedding and it'll be filled up with 100 cars. So, you know what I'm saying? So it's not their fault. They just need to be kind of more coached.
Well, I was thinking like with the A-frame signs, again, they go up for the events, they're easy to take down, they're easy to store.
Yeah.
But you can also put on there, if you're looking for parking, we can use the MapMe website that we have set up for parking. And then we've been able to change it.
Put a big QR code. Every phone has one. Just stick it and it shows you right where you are and where you can go for parking. You could use it with this
can do that.
directional finder app
Yep.
that you have.
That's
So
what we can
I
do.
would rather spend money on something like that than one or two businesses that are still going to be frustrated at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Well, then we'll take this back and take your comments as to how to redirect this to make something work.
Okay.
And
and I
appreciate
don't think we
it.
have any big events other than until 4th of July, and that's usually over so quickly. Hopefully that won't be too burdensome, and it usually starts late enough to miss the breakfast
And
crowd, and it's done.
he
by
has
4.
signs in
He
his
does have some.
parking lot now,
Both of them do.
right?
Both
All
parking
the-
areas do.
And they
Yeah.
don't work.
Well,
Well,
they
they
have
somewhat
been working,
Okay.
yes.
They worked on me.
Well,
That's because you.
I paid attention to them. And I followed rules.
I got people that tell me if it wasn't for handicap spots, they'd never get a good spot.
What would be appropriate?
I'm like, what did you just say?
Somebody needs to make a motion
Would
to
you
not
like to-
accept
Or would you
number.
like to table the item until another solution is presented?
That might be the best way. Let us come up with an alternative solution.
Come back to it.
And then we can come back to it if we're gonna do those, but not,
Okay.
Okay, I move
Yeah.
that we table this item.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded that we table item number 9. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further, it's item number 10. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of tabling item number 10 regarding MEDC's financial participation in the purchase and installation of 3 private parking signs in the downtown area, say aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously, and we will table item number 10. Item number 11, City Administrator's Development Report.
Okay, well, we not only see development continuing this year, but we feel we have a city that is well positioned to handle this increase with commercial and residential development coming into the area. The shops in Montgomery on the east side is adding, with current construction, a second retail center. Discount Tire is also on the east side, is in engineering review at this time. So that will be coming to this area.
Can you make them build their road first?
We aren't gonna ask that, so.
Good.
And with residential development, 3 new homes were completed in April. I know it doesn't necessarily sound like a lot, but we're coming out of winter, and we had 11 new single-family home permits issued in April. Hills of Town Creek subdivision on the west side of the city. The plans for the new 70-lot section have been submitted to the city for review. Town Creek Crossing on the northeast side of the city. They are underway with construction of new homes. That includes approximately 140 residential home sites, 8 commercial reserves. Redbird Meadows, that development was approved by City Council now and is moving forward with an annexation agreement for our 388 acres single-family home residential neighborhoods in the southwest portion of the city. It'll have up to 588 new homes ranging from about a fifth of an acre to a half acre of size. Last update I got, I think it was the same I gave last month, projecting September 2022 for the 149 turn lane, which is the property on the southeast corner of the intersection, the traffic traveling from the north turning to the east. And on the Klepper Street sidewalk project, that's right now they're in the process of gathering the easements on the Klepper sidewalk. MISD should be considering that soon, and the Montgomery Historical Society is also, they've given at least a favorable conversation, so we're working with them. I don't know if they have to have a formal meeting for that, or if their board president has the authority to sign that, but we're in discussions with them to get that accomplished. The likely timeline on that right now, we're projecting the pre-construction meeting would occur the third week of July, with construction after that to take between 60 to 90 days. So that construction will probably be completed sometime late September into October. And that's what I have for the development report there. Following that is a copy of the engineering reports. I think the most notable item on there is the improvements at Water Plant 3, which noted on primarily on page 1. And we are starting to push that water plant back in line over the last couple of weeks, which came well timed with the warmer weather. If you have any other questions on those, we have to try to take those or pass it off to the special projects manager.
That's
The Antiques Festival finished off our spring event season, so things are coming down now until August when they'll jump back up. But during this time, I've been updating the food vendor permit, the application, the community center reservation application, and I'm working on the festival application. Speaking with Public Works and PD, there's so much that these applications didn't have on there that we needed to know. So I've got those all going through them. I've also started looking at the festival ordinance. I think that can be cleaned up so it's not so confusing, as well as checking out the ordinances in Conroe and Bryan. I think we can stick in there some items to have the event organizers start paying for instead of the city paying for. Currently, when Public Works has to come out and set up for an event, the city, but it'll pay for that, which the city shouldn't be paying for that. So just some options I'm looking at to bring up so people can start having a discussion. And just so the taxpayers aren't funding these festivals, and the event organizers are more funding these festivals. I've done 44 food vendor permits this year so far. That's kind of slowed down since our festival season has slowed down. And we've had nine event permits. I am starting discussions with the chamber on the Freedom Fest, and I will be starting discussions with Charlie Tiggs on his fall festival that he plans on holding downtown here.
Did we get any feedback in terms of numbers from his last one?
I have not heard back from him. I'm still trying to contact him. He's always go, go, go all the
Yeah.
time. So I'm still working at feedback from Charlie on the mud buds.
How was the Antique Festival this year compared to years past?
We had 37 vendors, which is a fairly decent show. We just had them all crunched down in one spot, so we didn't close off the entire downtown like has been done previously. And several of the businesses appreciated that,
Yeah, sure.
we didn't totally block off their business for 3 days.
Good.
Or 4 days. The vendors were very, very happy. They had wonderful sales, and they were very pleased. And they did a lot a new setup, because the sun didn't shine directly in their booths the way we had the tents set up. So they were very happy. There are some things that need tweaking, but that's doable.
Good.
How do the shop owners, I mean, were most of them happy with it being there?
That's half and half.
Yeah. You can get the same ones every time, is that what it is?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We have so many businesses downtown now that are more service businesses instead of retail, and so these events don't necessarily help them a lot. But then you have the retail people who want the event, so it's kind of a balancing act. But I think pulling the event up to the community center and not closing off all of McAllen Street did help those who could stay open. We did not have to
When Charlie Diggs rolls around again in the fall, is he coming back downtown, or we're gonna leave him back at Ransom's?
Charlie would like to hold his fall event downtown. There will be some discussions about that.
Yeah, I was gonna see what kind of, because I've heard that there was,
There were
Yeah.
lots of problems.
I think I'd leave him at Ransom's if we can.
But I will.
It's very, 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 very well suited for his event.
I will have to talk
Yeah,
yeah, and a lot of parking.
and a lot of parking,
with him.
and it was
That
well
parking is
done.
still there. It's
Yeah.
the people, you know.
It was very
Go
well.
away.
It was super well done, you know, and we, you know, businesses in downtown area weren't negatively affected, but they were positively affected. I know we definitely saw some increases, but it wasn't huge, but it was enough to where you're like, that's any little bit's better than nothing, you know, but it also brings a lot of awareness to our town. And when people were leaving or going or coming, you know, they're they're Googling businesses, and they're thinking, yeah, I want to go eat, or I want to go shop, or whatever. So let's really try to keep him where he was at.
I will speak to
That's
him.
not doable, I mean, for a longer term plan, because there's development coming in the parking fields.
Right.
So sooner rather than later.
What's going to housing?
Presumably on those hard corners, no, because it seems like
Commercial.
that'd be
Commercial.
commercial.
Yeah.
But the Lefebvres have said that they intend on developing that, you know, sooner rather than later.
Maybe Wade will build an amphitheater somewhere around here. Wouldn't that be nice?
Well, I don't see how you could, because those corners are not, or at least not in that area, because those corners that would make sense, and then all of that land that, because the appraisal district has been raising rates so much, people put their land in agriculture, and you can't get it back out without paying a penalty for a long period of
Well, they
time.
roll back is what they do.
Yeah, so thank the appraisal district for reducing people's options.
Yeah.
I'd love to thank the appraisal district for all the good work they're doing,
Yeah, boy.
in the words of
As
Carol.
I say, I don't think that Grimes County has been as aggressive with property taxes, so maybe property prices there aren't as frothy as here, but I don't actually think that that's true.
Yeah.
So I think that their appraisal district has just taken a different tack.
They're encouraging growth is what they're doing, Grimes County.
Yeah. Well, thank you,
Okay.
Amy. Thanks for that report. Is there any other business?
So for executive session, there's nothing new to report. Board inquiry, does anyone have any questions or comments? So I actually do, this is something that came up when I came on the board from city council, or I was also on city council. Amy was actually on and pointed out very forthrightly that she wanted to make sure that there was a distinct separation between city council and MEDC, that city council was not to be jointly represented by the same person who is representing MEDC. So I think it's worth saying again, especially now, Byron, that you're mayor, that whenever you're representing the city as the mayor, which I assume you will be doing often, that the MEDC is a separate entity and that you should not negotiate or represent MEDC in agreements, because that happened prior to 4 years ago and left some very hard hurt feelings and unhappy.
Do you stay on MEDC or do
He
you?
can,
Yeah.
Oh, I can?
yes,
Yes.
absolutely he can. So
Okay. Yeah.
it only needs 2 people from the governing body, and for at least 2 years, our president of MEDC was also the mayor of Montgomery, which is when this problem was acute.
Okay.
So
You like being with us, guys?
No, I prefer him to be here.
Yeah, it is a suitable thing, I would think, because again, the number of times we're trying to get a pulse, city council, we've got a new city council, and so it probably would be a good thing. And Jeff's very entertaining, so that helps.
I'm sure you got some good ones coming on the council too.
So, theoretically, you could have more people from city council on the board should you have people who are unwilling to step aside, for rotation or that sort of thing. It's just a minimum of 2 people from the governing body have to sit here. So, yes,
I know
as mayor, you are more than welcome in any position on city council, but I'm sure Ryan would love it if you were secretary.
Yeah, sure.
You got into the conversation.
Sorry, actually.
No, anyone wants to take
that's
that?
a requirement. So, does anyone have anything else? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion seconded by Ryan. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. We are adjourned at 8:12. Thank you very much.
Good job, guys. There's a little chicken on that bone tonight.
We've got that 1,100 acre tract just closed on the corner of Plantersville, 1774, we're gonna do about